Summit for Missouri Tiered Supports. I am very excited that you all have chosen to share your Saturday with us. Thank you. We're a really small group today, so I think that if it's okay with everyone, I'd love to take the opportunity for all of us to do introductions. Oh, good. Kiki, our first presenter, looks very happy about that. I'm just going to head down my list, and the first person that I see on here is my fellow co-host, Kat Craig. Kat, you want to introduce yourself real quick? Just tell us your name and where you're from.
I'm Kat Craig. I'm with the Department of Mental Health, DD, and I am on the Communications and Trainings team. And I live in Illinois, but I work for DMH.
Thank you. Welcome, Kat. The next person that I see is Adriana. Adriana, you want to unmute and introduce yourself? If you're trying to talk, Adriana, you are on mute still. Okay, I see Becky, but it doesn't look like she's been able to connect to audio. Kat, do you think that you could see if Becky might need some help connecting to audio? Brandy is next on my list. Brandy, you want to unmute and introduce yourself?
Hi, sorry, I'm having issues with my camera, so I totally apologize. My name is Brandy Palmer.
You cut out a little, Brandy. I'm sorry. I heard Brandy Palmer.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And I do have a son who has a developmental disability as well.
Welcome. Okay, parents. That's wonderful. Hi, Carol. You introduced yourself to us a little bit earlier. Would you mind introducing yourself to everyone else?
Sure. Carol Johnson, Dallas County Public Administrator.
Thank you. Welcome, Carol. Elzine?
Yes, that's right. I'm Elzine Torres, and my husband Steve is here with me too. We are in Independence, Missouri. We're parents of a child with a developmental disability.
Welcome, Elzine and Steve. Is that what you?
Steve.
Wonderful. I'm in Kansas City today, so the western side is represented here. Jess. Jess, if you're trying to talk, you're on mute. Kim, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kim Girth. I'm with Rockwood School District in St. Louis County, and I'm a coordinator of early childhood special education services.
Welcome, Kim, and everyone will be hearing from Kim a little bit later this afternoon. Thank you for being here. Okay. Cher, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Cher Caudell. I'm the public administrator for Montauk County.
Welcome. I'm so excited. We got two public administrators here and lots of parents. This is wonderful. Okay, Kiki, I saved you for last because you are a presenter. And so, oh, thank you, Adriana. The chat box is a great place to use too. So she has three little humans around. Welcome, little humans. And is in Liberty. So also Casey over here is well represented, and you also work as a service coordinator. That's awesome. Welcome. Okay, I think that that's everyone. So I am excited to introduce our first presenter today, Kiki McGough, and she's here to talk to us about positive behavior supports at home. She is the parent consultant for the Association of Positive Behavior Supports. And as she comes on, we are going to turn on the recording, or it looks like maybe it already is. Meeting is already in progress. Okay, so we're going to record this session for later viewing. And Kiki, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you're all here today. So we're going to talk about partnerships and why we're better when we're together to support positive behavior support through creating partnerships. I'm happy to have parents here as well as administrators. I will use the word child, and just because a lot of what I've done is with children, but please, individuals go all the way up through adults. So look at the perspective from who you're representing here today. I want to thank Kathleen and Kat for the opportunity. It was great meeting with Kat the other day for technical support. We also had about an hour and a half conversation before we hit the technical piece about children and dogs and foster care and all kinds of things. And I told her that when I go on my journey with my dogs across the United States to meet people, that I would love to stop and hook up with her. So, and to every family who's taking the time to be here today, whether you have one child, 3 children, a young child, or, you know, an adult that you're supporting, doing things on a Saturday really shows a commitment to wanting to do what's best for your family. And the same goes for any professional from schools or from community agency who is here to support families, because truly we need to be doing it all together. Just a little bit about me. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was one of 6 kids, very, very, very shy. At the end, you'll meet my personal hero throughout my childhood. I began my career in special ed very early. I mean, very early, as in there was not a law for special education services in schools. It came into effect when I was in my master's program at Pitt. And I retired about 43 years ago, but I've been told by my children that I have really failed retirement. So I retired, then I went back to Head Start as the Disabilities and Mental Health Coordinator in Denver for an additional 5 years. And then I have a variety of other hats that I wear. But throughout all of my experience, I wear many hats, and one is as a parent. I'll introduce you to my kids. I have 3 children. They're very creative, very unique. All 3 have been diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, varying degrees of anxiety, depression, a little of this, a little of that. And we were really not the family when we went out to dinner that you would want to sit next to, because they were a tad lively and maybe they slid under the booth and popped up on the other side. So traveling with them was a challenge, and I had to make sure that I had all my supports in place before we got in the car and took a 3,000-mile road trip with me driving alone. I also have 2 very feisty granddaughters that I'll introduce as well. But I learned early on as a family to really advocate them in school. They were not easy children in the school district, and I needed to take my professional hat off, keep my parent hat on, but draw from my professional bag of tricks to truly develop the relationships that I needed. I've always had a very outside the box approach to supporting children and families. But throughout my career, I have a passion for advocating for families and for home, school, and community partnerships. I'm also a Puggle mom, and I work with Puggle rescues across the United States and Canada. I hope you can't hear it, but my special needs dog, Watson, who's a 10-year-old Puggle who's in a wheelchair, is quietly crying outside the gate because his mother has denied access to the room that I'm in today. I do have a babysitter dog watching for me. So my other hats is, you know, as I am the family consultant for the Association of Positive Behavior Support. I first started presenting for APBS in Tampa in 2005. And I presented with Shirley Swope from Peak Parent Center, Colorado's PTI, Parent Training and Information Network. And we presented on positive behavior support at home, which in 2005, not a lot of people were focusing on positive behavior support for families at home. But as part of our state improvement grant, I partnered with Peak Parent Center, and Shirley and I went around the state of Colorado from 2005 to 2008 when I was the PBIS state coordinator in Colorado, and we trained 900 parents across Colorado, mountain towns, rural towns, mining towns, Native American reservations, urban areas, downtown Denver, to really help parents set up positive, proactive routines and expectations at home, and to be thoughtful about how they interacted with their child when there was challenging behavior. We also in Colorado are lucky we have what we call PEP conferences, Parents Encouraging Parent Conferences. And I have a few quotes that I'll read from some of our presenters at PEP. Colorado was the first state to do this. We're in the 44th year, although I've heard that several other states are now developing the program as well. But it's a weekend retreat for families where they have breakout sessions, and it goes through a theme of the grief cycle from Gil Foley of rebuilding their dreams and raising a child with a disability. So I do a behavior session there, and I've been a facilitator for about 18 years. I'm an optimistic person. So when I retired, I looked for opportunities in my community, and I'm the co-president of our local Optimist International Club. And then I also am passionate about making sure that our babies and our young children, birth to 5, have what they need, and they don't have a voice, and they don't vote. So I work as a community lead for Save the Children Action Network, and I work with state and federal legislators to support children birth to 5. We were instrumental in getting full day kindergarten passed for Colorado 2 years ago, and I got to do the press conference with Governor Polis. And we also last year passed Proposition EE, free preschool for all 4-year-olds. And again, we advocated, testified, and worked with the governor and the legislators to get that done. So I just want you to think as we start about the many hats that you wear. And as a professional, not only your hats, but the hats of the families that you're working with. You're a family member. You have a spouse or a partner, perhaps. You may actually have a job or go to school and everything that requires. As a family member, you are collaborating with the school, with community agencies, with medical personnel, with therapy services and programs. You may be involved in foster care. You may be involved with significant mental health challenges. You may also be involved in your spiritual community. But families are also, don't get much credit for it, but they're house managers. They're the grocery shoppers, and cooking and cleaning and laundry and landscaping. They're finance directors and budget managers. And in their spare time, they're the head of the entertainment and recreation activities for the families. School is out. Families are now challenged to, what are we doing for the 30-hour week when you would have been in school? What time are we getting up? What are we doing as a family? How are we working on chores and things with everyone home? Not to mention that for the past 2.5 years, we have experienced many challenges as the result of a pandemic, and it's affected all of us in a different way. Many of us have experienced isolation, particularly true for adults in the developmental disabilities community who were used to being able to go out, interact, are now doing things on Zoom. Health issues, grief and loss, job and housing issues, and the impact of major disruption to education and community-based services. And yet, as we come out of the pandemic and are a little bit more back out, into the thick of things, we continually meet and begin to collaborate with new partners and make new connections with really little or no understanding of each of our experiences and challenges. And Kat, I'm going to use you as an example. I knew she was technology. And the hour that we spent together, we learned quite a bit about each other, found we have common interest in many things, but it takes putting it out there, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, opening up, and having those conversations before you can actually begin to partner. So as we look at the journey to a quality life, and I did indeed do my homework and pulled from the work that you're doing in the state on positive parenting and charting life course. My goal today is to provide you strategies to support partnerships as you implement positive behavior support at home, in the community, and partnering with schools. And my goal is to do it through stories. There's Watson sparking for me. One of the quotes that I got this morning from a friend, and I check in every morning with my coffee and my Facebook before I get up with the dogs. And it says, people don't respond to what you say or do. People respond to how you make them feel. And one of the best ways to make someone feel connected with you is to make them feel understood and listened to. And that's from Ed Milet. And I think that's the foundation of anything we do with relationships and partnerships. This is one of my favorite quotes and pictures, and we use it across the state of Colorado, that no matter how skilled professionals are, nor how loving families are, each, cannot achieve alone what the parties working together hand in hand can accomplish. So it's through the partnerships that we're going to help create quality of lives for our family members, as well as taking care of ourselves. So to effectively partner with schools, we have got to build that foundation of trust. We have to have open communication to understand each person and where they're coming from. We need to truly listen to what is important in planning that quality life or that successful transition to our family member, and to develop those relationships which allow us to create a vision and a roadmap on this journey. I'm thrilled to have someone here from early childhood. I think it's Kim. And one of my big jobs from Catholic Charities with Denver Great Kids Head Start was I had 30 or 40 kiddos each year, primarily, low-income children with mental health and trauma, challenging behavior, going into Denver public schools. Families did not have good relationships with schools in the past. These children were kind of set up for having a very hard time. And a big part of my job was helping families to successfully transition those kiddos in, and establishing a relationship so when there were problems that they had someone to call and someone to work with. Looking at the family perspective tools and charting the life, it looks at embracing trust, relationships, and communication, but also honoring our values, our cultures, and our experiences. This is a process, it's a path, and it does take a lot of work coming from both sides. And as I said, it opens us up to being vulnerable. One of the things that we do in the PEP conferences is we work on a grief cycle with families in 3 individual breakout sessions so that they get to become a little community over the course of 3 days. And Gil Foley in 2011 adapted the grief cycle to look at rebuilding your dreams of having a child with special education or significant medical needs. And they looked at kind of a cycle that goes around, but the key is that at any given point in time, you may find yourself at a different place on that cycle. So you're getting ready to send your little kiddo into kindergarten, and you realize that they have to ride a separate bus because they're in a wheelchair and the regular bus doesn't take it. So all your other kids in the neighborhood are lining up for the bus, and your child tends to be in another bus. When everyone else is getting a driver's license and your child with developmental disabilities at age 16 isn't really in a position to be able to get that. It kind of takes you right back into this grief cycle and you re-experience it. So in universities, people learn through studies. In businesses and bureaucracies, people learn by reports. But in communities, we learn by stories. So my goal is to share a few of the stories that will bring this out. I was a special ed teacher for kids with significant emotional disabilities for many years in a school district, highly challenged school district, 84% free and reduced lunch. And we went cross-categorical. We went to a full inclusion model. So I got little first graders with reading disabilities, which, believe me, was so much better than spending the day before Christmas vacation in the bathroom floor with a child with a significant meltdown. And I had a little girl who truly had the most significant learning disability of any child I had met. And at night, every night, she would draw me little pictures and put the letters that she could write, and she would bring it to me in an envelope the next day, which just touched me greatly. But when it came time for her IEP, her father kind of blew into the room, big guy, motorcycle guy, long hair, tattoos, and pointed a finger in my face. And I'm thinking, well, I wasn't quite prepared for this. And he goes, you are not going to do this to my daughter. And I'm thinking, boy, we have a really good relationship. And she now knows 7 letters. And, you know, we really have to work together because her needs are great. And I thought I have 2 choices. I can get defensive and say, excuse me, please, could you sit down? Or I could say, help me understand what's going on. And what he said to me was, you're not going to do to my daughter what was done to me. You're not going to pass her year to year through school and she can never read. Because today, my job opportunities are limited by the fact that the public school system never taught me to read. And I took a step back and said, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I had no idea. And believe me, I will work with you to do everything we can to make sure your daughter is successful. If he wasn't opened up to being vulnerable and telling me where he was in this grief cycle, everybody else could read. His daughter couldn't read. And it took him back to in school of the humiliation of being asked to read in front of kids. But it established a relationship that we kept together for the entire 5 years that she was in the elementary school with me. I had a little boy, came from the Hmong community, and they had lived in Colorado for about 6 or 7 years. The parents were both college educated. One was in the technology field, one was in the public health field, getting her master's in nursing. Highly educated parents, and their child had significant, gifted child, but significant autism, and was leaving preschool to go into kindergarten. I knew that there was no way that we could support this child without a significant amount of additional supports. And to do that, we needed to have the family's permission to pursue an evaluation and to get him the support that he needed. The mother in our 3rd meeting looked at me and said, you do not understand. It is not my decision. In our culture, every decision about school or medical is made by the elder, and that is my father. And my father does not want his grandson labeled. So my hands are tied. I brought home information on autism when he was 3 years old. So I need your help to figure out how we can get the help that my son needs, honoring our values and our culture. So we came through a back door. We did it in a different way. We got the family's permission, and the child was able to successfully move into kindergarten with the supports that he needed. And my last story is a little guy in preschool, and our preschool person, Kim, will understand this, who had significant cerebral palsy, and his mom walked him to school. Came in a stroller. She put the stroller inside the hallway, carried him into the classroom, and he spent his 3 hours a day in the preschool classroom scooting around on his butt. Well, the teacher called me. It was time for kindergarten. And she said, our school is doing a kindergarten program, not a special ed program, a kindergarten summer program that everyone is eligible for. And I need this little guy to come. And I can't believe his mother doesn't want him to come. And I'm like, okay, take a few steps back here. Let's see what's going on. I said, why don't you let me talk to the mom? So I called the mom up, only to find out that she had recently been given the opportunity to finish her real estate license, and she was now working full-time, which meant that starting in the summer, this little guy, Nate, would be with grandma, and grandma did not live within walking distance and could not bring him to a summer program in his stroller. They could, however, access district transportation, but to do so, he would have to be on a wheelchair bus, and he didn't have a wheelchair. And she said, I'm not ready. We've already met at Children's Hospital. We've already measured him. It's already being ordered. I just didn't want him to be in a wheelchair this summer. I said, okay, hang on. If I could get you a loaner wheelchair, and we brought it to school, he came on the bus. If we left the wheelchair inside the door where we used to leave the stroller, and he scooted down to the classroom, would you let him come? She goes, absolutely. I'm just not ready. So it was really recognizing where she was in order to come up with a solution. And that's what partnerships are all about. Quickly, my kids, Katie, Patrick, and Donovan, good Irish kids. My daughter is a world traveler, undergraduate degree in theater, drama, and psychology, master's in special ed. She's a PBS coach. I've worked with her, I've presented with her across the United States. Fantastic mother. She had an IEP when she was young for speech, word retrieval, sensory motor integration. She was diagnosed as gifted learning disabilities at the age of 4. She's a great advocate now, working in Germany with middle school kids with disabilities, and she can relate. My son Patrick is an independent thinker and questions everything. He's been dancing since he was 3. He is creating his own path, and he's going to get there his own way. And when people ask me what he's doing, the best I can say is, well, during COVID, he built a house in the back of his truck in case he chooses to maybe take 6 months in a wilderness area to reflect on life. He's a little out there. And my youngest, who actually rents my basement, is artistic, creative, and a deep thinker. He's firm in his convictions. Much better than saying stubborn. He is sensitive, but don't tell him that. And believe me, he was a square peg in a round school system. When he was 4, he came home from preschool and told me, I've given it a lot of thought. I never much liked preschool. I probably won't like kindergarten. They might not have good math and manipulatives. I don't know how to read. Show and tell may not be very exciting. So I think we should quit while we're ahead and I'm done with school. When he was in 2nd grade, he came home and said, what is 80% of 24? And I'm like, why are you solving for X in an algebraic equation? Mother, just tell me, what is 80% of 24? I said, I'll tell you, but would you please tell me why you want to know? He said, fine, meet standards is 80%. If I can figure out what 80% of 24 is, I can figure out how many problems I have to do and skip all the hard ones. Maybe he should have done the 20% of the hard ones and skipped the 80% of the easy ones. But that's my son. Believe me, the day that he graduated from high school, I was dancing in the streets. And when he graduated from college with his degree in fine arts from Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Iowa, with a focus in sculpture, I was thrilled that I had advocated for him throughout school, got him enrolled in art classes from the time he was 5, and really helped nurture his talents so that he could have the life that he wants. These are my kiddos. We are a little outside the box. We got a lot of tie-dye going. My granddaughters are now in Germany. I'm leaving on the 8th of August to go and visit them, but they are something else, let me tell you. Kate is 8 and she is the sweetest thing in the whole wide world. She very likely will be identified as ADHD and gifted learning disabilities, just like her mom. And Ellie, I watched for the year during COVID. She was born right before COVID hit. And I watched her when my daughter returned to school in September that year. And at 10 months old, she pointed a finger at me, shook her head no, said, woo, 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 wah, wah, and then raced down the hallway to dump the whole bowl of dog water on my bathroom floor. But she told me I am not allowed to dump the dog's water. And believe me, at 69, she's much faster than I am. When you look and work with families and with individuals, there is not one size that fits all. So it's really taking the time to develop those relationships and really understanding who we're working with so that we can come up with the very best plan. I loved some of the tools. Again, looking at the Charting Life course, I always do a 1-page profile as well. And for me, if I'm transitioning a kid from preschool to kindergarten, or a child is going from middle school to high school, or a youth is going from a transition program into the adult world, I need to know who they are. What are their strengths? What are their interests? What is rewarding and motivating for them? What are their favorite TVs, movies, books, etc.? Because I can do any behavior plan for any child utilizing their favorite strengths for social stories, for power cards, etc., if I know what they are. What are their significant relationships? What are strategies that are working for them? What are areas of continued need, stated positively, needs to continue to take deep breaths when they're upset. That lets me know that there are some issues there, but I've stated it in a positive way. And when appropriate, I create for all my kiddos going into kinder, I created a parallel social story with books written in pre-primer language that the kids could read to their kindergarten teacher about what they liked, what was working for them, and what they needed to work on to advocate for themselves, and for the families to have one at home to advocate as well. This is my son, Donovan. I just got to say, he's a gamer. He loved Jamie in Mythbusters. So when Jamie was on a plane with me coming back from a training many years ago from Columbus, and I called my son, he came to the airport not to pick up his mother. He came to the airport to get his picture taken with Jamie. I know what makes this kiddo tick. When he told me in senior year of high school that he was going to the prom, and he goes, "Mother, don't say a word." I did kind of choke. I said, "You've never done one school activity, you're going to the prom?" He goes, "Yes, would you please have a tie-dye suit made for me?" I had a tie-dye suit made for him, and it paid back, because when I picked him up sophomore year from Cornell College, and he said, "I made you a present for Mother's Day." And I'm like ecstatic. I said, "Where is it?" He goes, "It's in that cardboard box with my dirty laundry. Don't touch it. Just make sure that it's safe in the car." And when we got home, it is a bust of him with his goatee and his long hair done in my favorite tie-dye colors. Again, I nurtured his strengths. And although we had challenging times, he was able to give back something that I will keep for the rest of my life. Real quickly, I had a little gal, Steph, little gal with Rett syndrome that I worked with for years in public school. A lot of issues with really challenging her. And again, I talked to the mom and said, "What makes your daughter tick?" She said, I said, "What does she look at?" Because she had no communication. And she said, "Kiki, that stupid happy face." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Oh my God, we go to the mall. It's outside those little stores. There's the balloons. I mean, seriously, I can't get her out of the mall unless I buy something with a happy face." One of the big problems the school presented was she wouldn't sit in her space in music class. She kept getting up and moving around. I said, "Humor me, try this." We made a huge placemat with a happy face on it. And I said, "Let's just put this down. Maybe she'll sit if there's a happy face there." And they're like, "Yeah, Kiki, really, come on." 2 days into trying this, they're walking down the hall, and the para dropped the placemat on the floor in the middle of the hallway, and Steph sat down on it. She knew that was her place. Over the course of the year, we could put happy faces, and she could find her way to all the locations in the building she needed to go by using the happy face as a cue. She now had symbolization and was able to move on to picture symbols, select books, select food items at home, and in doing so, she actually regained the use of her hands. But it's from working with mom and finding out what made her tick. Another real quick one is my little girl, Desiree. Parents didn't care if she used a switch or not. They wanted her to be happy and engaged with her peers. She was moving on to middle school. So they had a track A, B, and C in middle school. And we wanted to make sure that she got to be with some of the peers that she had developed really good relationships with. So they said, "Well, here's the 3 peers we need to make sure are in her strand." And I said, "I think that Desiree should pick her own peers." And they're looking at me like, "You got to be kidding. She doesn't talk. How's she going to pick her peers?" I had each child in the class tape an index card to the corner of their desk. And for 1 week, every time Desiree, she would come over on your desk and tap. And that meant that she wanted to be with you. And then the kids would get a seat and let her sit there. If she came and tapped on your desk and looked at you, you were allowed to put a mark on your index card. At the end of the week, she picked the same 3 peers that the teachers picked, because those were the ones that she was the most comfortable with, but she picked them, not the teachers. And my last one is Melanie, a little girl with complex medical needs, who was in a medical program for kids with very, very significant needs. And it was time to enroll her in the public school system. There was no way mom was going to move her from that program at age 3. She could stay till age 4. So I said, that's fine. I'm glad you're able to continue in that program, but maybe before she turns 4, I could come and observe in the program. She goes, why would you want to do that? I said, well, if I saw her in the setting where she's really comfortable, that may give us a lot better idea of how to support her in school. She goes, I guess that's okay. She wasn't so happy with me. I found out what she likes to do. She likes the color green. These are her 3 favorite songs. Apparently, when mom came in for the IEP, although our relationship started a little rocky, she walked in and mom handed her to me. And I'm like, I can hold her during the meeting? She goes, well, the staff at Kid Street said she really liked you and they thought you were pretty nice too. So maybe this would be a really good thing. So we were able to then create a program for her, again, based on mom trusting me, being vulnerable, and developing those partnerships. So when I look at positive behavior support, I look at that individual, regardless of age. And I look at how are we supporting them in the home, in the school, and in the community. There is a video, and I think that you'll get the link in the chat. And it was created for the Association for Positive Behavior Support. It's about 6 minutes long, PBS at home. It's done in a 3-tiered model on how to set up expectations, routine, respond to challenging behavior. And as you move up into the 3rd tier, how to work with a team to develop an appropriate functional behavioral assessment and individual behavior plan. I got to write the script and work with the production company on this. And during COVID, when we had switched everything to Zoom, I was thrilled to find out that this video actually won a gold Telly Award from the entertainment industry. There's a PBS at home, PBS at school, and PBS in the community. So I'd encourage you to go and look at those, all of those. They're only 5 or 6 minutes each. So look at your expectations at home. I also made available 3 different tip sheets. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, but think of your house, organize it in such a way that there are some family rules. If your child's in a school doing positive behavior support, PBIS, and they have pause, pride, or star, then do a pause program at home, pride, star, etc. The key is to be age appropriate. If you have a young child, you're going to use picture cues. If you have a child with significant developmental disabilities, you might break each routine into a picture chart and put it on the fridge. My 3 expectations when I came home from work, working at the Colorado Department of Education, believe me, it took me 30 minutes to get out of downtown. By the time I got home, I was fried. And I would walk in with my 2 sons who I love, and there would be fruit roll-ups, Mountain Dew, backpacks, shoes, and I probably was not real positive at that point in time. Although my youngest, tongue in cheek, would say, excuse me, Miss Positive Behavior Support Coordinator, you're not in a very good mood today. So we set it up. I only want 3 things. Could you please put the backpacks in your room, stick your shoes in your room, and pick up the Mountain Dew and the fruit roll-up papers before I get home, because all I really want to do is have a cup of coffee and watch Channel 9 News. They said, will you call us when you're close? You got it. I'm at 76th and Sheridan. I'm going to be home in about 10 minutes. I came in one day and then I had to change my behavior. I had to put my shoes away because they pointed out that I had 7 pairs of shoes in the living room. And I'm a kind of a pile person anyway. And then I had to say, hey guys, thanks. This looks great. I really appreciate it. But I was coming home one day and my son, Donovan, called me on the cell phone. And he said, what time are you going to be home? And I thought, this is kind of weird. And I said, why? He said, because I thought I would have your coffee ready for you when you walked in the door. And I thought, bingo, the positive, setting it up works. I got it. So organize, look at those routines, organize your day so kids know what's going on. You can present it written, picture, storybook, chart. You can do a video of what it looks like. My son did not like schedule changes without advance notice. Could you please notify me in advance if you've made a dentist appointment and I'm going to have to leave when you get home? Use transition warnings to know what's going to come next. Might need to use a timer, some visuals to help with those transitions. Shirley and I came up with a home matrix in 2005, and it's very funny because if you do a search, it's all over the United States. I don't care if my name's on it. I just think it's great that people are using a home matrix to set up the expectations and routines of your day. Help out, own your behavior, manners count. We modified it all during COVID. They're now on the pbis.org website. Great. Sit down as a family. You don't do this alone. You do it with your family together. You need to anticipate challenges and plan accordingly. So you know, as a parent, what things set up or set your child off. When they don't feel well, when they're tired, there's too many people in the room, they have to sit for a long period of time. The more you can share that information with the community and school folks they're working with, the better you can both come up with a plan across settings that will help the child. Remove temptations and things that are likely to create problems. My granddaughter, when she was young, Kate, sweet thing. Dad is a kind of a food junk eater and chocolate eater. So Kate, one of her first words was chocolate. Well, and she's a picky eater. So you don't put the chocolate M&Ms on the kitchen counter before dinner, because once she sees the chocolate, she doesn't want her dinner. Put them in the cupboard. And again, you need to plan accordingly and work collaboratively, because she would ask her mom for chocolate. Mom would say no. And then she would go and ask her dad, and dad would say no. And then he'd say, well, she'd say, please, 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 just two. Well, I guess you could have two. And then it creates a situation between the parents because they're not being consistent, at which grandma brought this up a couple different times. And then one day she asked my daughter for candy and she said no. And she went in and asked her dad, and her dad said, what did your mom say? And she goes, why do you want to know? And he goes, what did your mom say? My mom said no. He goes, then I guess you're not going to get candy right now. She goes, I can't believe you are doing this to me. They were on the same page and they were being consistent. For kids with more significant developmental disabilities, I always pair verbal directions with a song. It gets into your brain with a scent, strawberries. And this song means we're getting ready for a bath. Lavender in this song means we're getting ready for a bedtime. Because if I don't have the ability to communicate and I've got pretty significant needs and I'm comfy in my beanbag chair, I'm not so thrilled when you pick me up and I don't know what's going to happen next. So we know that behavior interventions are far more effective when they're implemented across environments by all caregivers and other significant people in a person's life. When I do behavior planning for schools, I also do an element for at home. So it's a two-part plan. The school's going to do this, the family's going to do this. The school's going to work on taking a deep breath, the family's working on taking a deep breath. And I'm watching my time because I have a great example at the end. Positive behavior support is really based on the principles of behavior. We all experience challenging behavior. It is typically an expression of some communication or need. And we all, parents, professionals, teacher, community people, we need to look for situations and events that increase the likelihood that behavior is going to occur. And we need to find a positive alternative behavior to meet that need. And then we have got to reinforce that positive behavior. So it's our job to help as a family member to really understand what lies beneath the behavior. When I would do behavior planning with my Head Start families, and believe me, nobody wants to come in to meet with Kiki on Friday at 8:30 in the morning when you're getting paid at McDonald's by the hours that you're there to do a behavior plan and a safety plan for your child who is really creating an unsafe environment in the classroom. But I would always start off by saying, I want to thank you for being here today. And I want to tell you, I don't think your child is staying up at night and thinking of ways to make the classroom unsafe for him and his friends. I think he's doing the very best that he can. And it's our job as the parents and professionals to come up with a better plan to help him be safe so that he can be part of the classroom and learn with the other kids. And parents got that. I wasn't there to target your kid and do this to him. I'm asking you to help me come up with a plan that we can all live with that's going to help. And again, we have to remember the age and the developmental level of the child. So for families, I take the nuts and bolts of positive behavior support and I say the setting events. What are the situations or characteristics that set the child up for failure? Antecedent, what happens before the behavior or sets the child off? What is the specific behavior? And let's be really serious. What is the payoff? Am I getting my M&Ms by asking dad? Because if I am, I'm going to whine a little bit longer and a little bit louder until dad gives me that M&M. So to help families really understand what is going on at home has a major impact at school. What's going on in a group home has a major impact in the work environment. Looking at the schedules, the predictability of routines, the differences in personality and temperament, relationships, medical and physical issues, and challenging family situations. Again, a lot has gone on during COVID, and families may not have shared that with the folks they're working with, but it does have an impact that if we can develop those trusting relationships, we might be able to mediate that just a little bit. What sets them off? Changes in the environment, time of day. Do they really know what we're asking them to do? Is it our tone of voice? Is it the kind of attention they're getting or not getting? Can they actually do what we're asking them to do? Shirley and I are big on examples of cleaning up your room. And my understanding of a clean room is not the same as my son's. And I would go in and I'd say, Donovan, you really need to clean this room. And he goes, Mother, I've cleaned it. There's a path to my bed. In his eyes, that's good enough. I can get to the bed. In my eyes, there's 4 things you need to do. You need to make sure all the trash is in the trash can, the dirty clothes are in the hamper, the blankets are at least pulled up somewhat, and toys are put back on the shelf. That to me is a clean room. If we don't have the same definition of a clean room, somebody's going to get triggered or set off. And then how do we respond? Are we consistent? Do all the adults respond in the same way? And is it working? Is the child getting what they need in a positive, proactive way? Shirley and I were real big on tips and strategies to support positive acknowledgement. You want to give the attention to the behavior you want to see, not the behavior you don't want to see. And for early childhood people, the no, don't, and stop are not the most effective techniques. So we want to use specific praise, positive reinforcement as often as possible, and really focus on activities that support your child's strengths and reinforce feelings of self-esteem, accomplishment, and cooperation. My daughter is great with my dear Miss Kate, and she had little posters made throughout the house that said, I can do hard things. And because she would get anxious and then she'd say, I can't do it, I can't do it. My daughter would say, take a deep breath. You can do hard things. Tell me, I can do hard things. We're out in Target one day and there's a toddler having a major tantrum. And my granddaughter looks at me, she's like 3.5, and she goes, oh, Grandma, they didn't learn their breathing techniques yet. And I thought, bingo, she recognizes that if you can take a deep breath and breathe, you may not need to have that tantrum. 5-to-1 positives and steps in the right direction. On that matrix, what we did, that home matrix, is we had parents take 10 popsicle sticks and 10 things every day that you're going to positively acknowledge. Could be with your spouse or partner, could be with one of your kids, could be with all of your kids. Thanks for feeding the dog. Nice job taking a deep breath. Thanks for calming down in your room. Because the more attention we give to the positive behaviors and the steps, the better. We have a toy store here called Beyond the Blackboard, and my granddaughter calls it the Magic Toy Store. And they actually had, it's called Learning Buckets, and it's from Learning Resources, Good Behavior Buckets. And it has everything that Shirley and I did with the sticks in different colors. So my goal is to do this for losing 10 pounds, and eating healthy and exercising. That good job. You had an apple this afternoon. You got your 100 steps in this morning. Oh, you took the dogs for a walk. And what we had the parents do is to just do the 10 sticks and then move them from an in cup to an out cup at the end of the day. Did I remember to thank them for doing their homework? Did I say nice job for washing your hair without being asked, etc. Check in each day and see how you did. Nice thing about life, if you only did one of them, tomorrow's a new day. You might get 2, 3. But if you do them for 30 days in a row, you are creating a habit. Quickly, I have about 7 minutes left based on my time. I'm just going to quickly do David. So David was a little guy in the Head Start program with significant learning problems and significant behavior, being raised by a single dad, a minority dad, who did not really have very good experiences in the school system. So we put the plan in place. We came up with all of the preventions. We identified the new skills that we wanted David to learn. And then we had a plan for dad at home. And dad's homework was to blow a bubble around your body when you need some space, or to putting on the brakes and take a few deep breaths. And dad was to work with them every day at home. We came up with how to respond to the challenging behavior, what we wanted to do to reinforce the new skills, high fives, hugs. Great job, you're taking a deep breath. I see you putting that bubble out there. Thumbs up, way to go. It was time to do the transition 1-pager to send him to public school to go along with my social story. And this was a neat dad, great dad. And we looked at all the things that he found enjoying and motivating, and included in there is time with dad. He had his characters, his favorite books, helping the teachers at school, and helping dad out at home. We looked at some of his strengths. He was good with his hands. He had good relationships. So we're really trying to break these all down. What does he need to do? He needs to use those calm down strategies. He needs to work on being a super friend. He's got some word retrieval learning disabilities things going on. So it's going to take him a while to use his words. So he needs to take a breath before he kind of clocks his friend, because it's not going well. And then we really wanted to work with dad on how the school, the new school, could support this dad who had fabulous potential to be a good member of the school community. He did graphic art and airbrush paintings for the Denver Broncos and the Denver Nuggets. And I said, you need to share those with the school. He goes, no, that would be bragging. I said, no, just think of fundraising for the school. You could help them. So he said, well, if you write it down and put it in the plan, then I'll give it to them. But that way I don't have to. And dad wanted, I want community resources. You guys are so good about telling me where I can go and things I can do. But it was challenging because dad didn't show up for this plan, and dad had never missed a meeting. And we're sitting there 5, 10, 15 minutes thinking, this is just not typical. What's going on? And he storms into the room all upset. He goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry I'm late. I just have to thank you all. My son's behavior plan saved my job today. We're like, whoa, never heard that one before. He was working at Home Depot, and he had one of those things, pallets on wheels with like 10-gallon things of paint. And he hit a bump and it got away from him, and it was careening through the parking lot. And he said, I froze. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. And then I remembered putting on the brakes. I took 3 deep breaths and I ran like hell, and I caught it just in time. If I had not practiced my son's homework, I would not have known what to do. So thank you. We got a call in January when he was in kindergarten saying that he had been recognized with the Citizenship Award for the school. And dad thanked the Head Start program for making that happen by involving him in his son's plan. So I'm going to go quickly. Just please take care of yourself. You can't take care of the rest of the world unless you take care of yourself. And particularly over the last couple of years that we've had. So be gentle with yourself. Do what you need to do, quiet time, meditation, etc. Think about how you can care for others. Many people have been through some rough spots. How can you really support family partnerships and communication? How can you set up the most effective method for ongoing communication? Some of my parents work minimum wage job. They can't take a phone call during the day, but I can text them and then they can call me back when they get a break. It works for both of us. Let's do it. Teachers and professionals have been inundated with stress over the last couple years. Let's be compassionate and gentle and understanding for our professionals as well. I told you I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I do have my personal childhood hero. And several of my favorite quotes are, if you could only sense how important you are to those you meet. There's something of yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. More and more, I've come to understand that listening is one of the most important things we can do for one another. It can be our greatest gift. And imagine what our real neighborhoods would be like if each one of us offered, as a matter of course, just one kind word to another person. Think of the ripple effect when we nourish someone. One kind, empathetic word had a wonderful way of turning into many. When I was 13 years old, Mr. Rogers came to my next door neighbor, Becky Smith's house, and my two best friends, Ann Buttrick and Becky Smiths, both of their fathers were ministers at the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary with Mr. Rogers. And on a hot summer night, we all sat on Becky Smith's spiral staircase, all the neighborhood kids in the 1960s. And Mr. Rogers came in his sweater and his tennis shoes, and he did a piano concert for the neighborhood. It's tempting to think that a little isn't significant and that only a lot matters. But most things that are important in life start very small, change very slowly, and they don't come with fanfare and bright lights. I received an invitation to lunch from someone that I haven't seen in many, many years, and she is an advocate for ARC in Adams County. And I was in 2 different school districts, so I worked with her in some of the more challenging situations. And she called and asked if I would go to lunch. She is hiring and training 2 new ARC advocates. And as part of the training, she wants them to meet me so that I can share with them some of the tools and tips of working with parents so that they can set up positive relationships. That's a little thing, but it's a very important thing to me. So, of course, I have to say, check out the Association for Positive Behavior Support. Family membership's only $35. PBIS has really increased the amount of tools and resources for families. I also work with the Home and Community PBS Network, free webinars and family chats throughout the year. And if families are not hooked up with the Parenting Special Needs magazine, again, it is a monthly virtual magazine. And in the middle of each one, there's a meditation for parents to take some time, take a deep breath, and take care of themselves. So thank you for sharing your time with me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day at the conference.
Thank you so much for starting us right.
10:30.
You did right on the nose. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. If any